In this video, I'm going to show you how to combine these elements into one element and then create a logo. We're going to use all of these shapes. We're going to change some of these letters to white and place them on top of these shapes on top of another page. So the first thing we're going to do is hit Command minus a couple of times. Hold the space bar down. Notice the little hand that pops up. That enables you to move the page. So I'm going to move the page up and over. Again, I'm holding the space bar down. I'm going to let go of the mouse first. Up here at the top of the screen, I'm going to click Document Setup. If you have anything selected on your screen, the Document Setup button isn't here. So if there's something selected, just click Elsewhere, and that will go away, and this will come back. So click Document Setup. Then on the top right-hand side, click Edit Artboards. Rather than dragging a new page, the quickest way to duplicate the page is to hold the Option key down. Now watch what happens to the cursor when I hold the Option key down. It changes into two arrows. That means I'm about to duplicate this page. So with the Option key selected, I'm going to click and drag it to the right. And then while I'm dragging it, I'm also going to hold the Shift key down. Shift constrains it to 90 degrees so that these two pages will be next to each other. Again, I'm going to let go of the cursor first, and then let go of the Option key and the Shift key. Top left corner of your screen, top left corner of your keyboard is the Escape key. I'm going to hit Escape, and now I've got these two pages side by side. Remember to save your file. I'm going to do Save As. I'm going to take off alphabet and put in logo. Then I'm going to remove the underscore and parts and label this whatever period number it is. I'm on the desktop. Remember, if you don't see information on the left-hand side in this window, click this little down arrow and you'll see the entire window with all of the things on the left-hand side. This is where you can either click Desktop or your file might be currently in the Downloads folder. So I'm going to click on Desktop and save it. I've already saved it once, so I'm going to replace it and click OK. Since I don't need all of these letters, I'm going to select all of these by clicking and dragging a rectangle around everything or close to everything and delete. And if you notice, there's parts up here that are missing. This file was generated by a student, and one of the things that I can tell you that's missing from this is all of the parts are still separate. What you need to do on this, if your parts are still separate, is you need to group them. So I'm going to go through a few of these just to show you the process. I'm going to select with the selection tool, not the direct selection tool, but with the selection tool. Then I'm going to hold the Command key down and hit the letter G. That's how you group an object or objects into an object. So now the A is all one element with several grouped objects. I'm going to do that process for all of these and just move them every so often and make sure that I have them all. To get it back into place, I'm hitting Command Z to undo. The other way to group them, these are probably just 3/4 circles, so I don't have to group those. The other way to group them with the menus is to go up to Object and Group. If for whatever reason you ever need to ungroup an object, notice how it says ungroup here, but it's grayed out. That means this object is currently not grouped, but I'm going to group it. I'm going to move it over just a little bit with the arrow keys on the keyboard. And then if I want to ungroup it for whatever reason, I can ungroup it here. So I'm just going to quickly go through these and group them. Again, I'm just holding the Command key down, letting go in between each grouped object. And this is actually whichever student I borrowed this from. These were done very well. Every so often you'll see Can't really see it that well. I'm going to zoom in. There's a space in here. In order to fix this, I'm going to go into wireframe mode. Also, you can see that it's not connected here. Wireframe mode is Command Y. Then I'm going to click the Direct Selection tool, which is the white arrow. Since all this stuff is selected, I'm going to click away from it by just clicking over here. Then I'm going to click this one point on the end of this shape and move it to the left until it overlaps here. And then this shape, I'm going to click, I didn't click the end points, but I clicked the line itself. That will select everything with the Direct Selection tool between 2 points. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and just drag it straight down until these two are touching. That way, when I preview it, there's no gaps in here. I also noticed that the J is done the same way. When you zoom in, by either hitting the letter Z to get the magnifying glass, or the way I like to do it, which is to hold the space bar, which also helps you move things, and then the Command key will give you the magnifying glass also. I'm going to hit Command Y again, and I see that there are several shapes in here. I'm going to get rid of this one by hitting delete twice. Here's why I hit delete twice. If I just select this line and hit delete, notice that there's 2 points left over, and I don't want any points left over. So I'm going to select those and delete those too. Then I'm just going to take this part of the J, click on the end point, and move it to the right and down a little bit so that the points are now on top of one another. So that when you preview it, now it goes straight down instead of having a little bit of a jagged line here. Again, Command Y puts me in wireframe mode, holding the spacebar down to move it around. I'm going to click on this point and then connect it. You can see that this point is not connected, so I'm going to move that one up also. And then since there's a gap in here, I'm going to actually move this up to this tangent point. The tangent is where the point hits an arch. So it's a much cleaner looking letter like that. I'm holding the space bar, the Command key. In order to zoom out, I'm going to hold the Option key also. Watch what happens to the magnifying glass. It turns into a minus, and now I can zoom out. So now I'm hitting the Selection tool again and just going back and continuing the Command G. I'm letting go every time I do this of all of the keyboards. And just going through all of them. Command G. I'm going to stop here. Actually, I need the W also because I'm going to do my own initials. While I'm at it, you get the lowercase. Okay, remember, this student actually did this correctly because all the pieces are still down here. All of these pieces still should be here on this page because they're the elements that you use to build your letters. I'm going to hit Command minus twice. And the letters that I want, I'm going to click here. Oops, didn't get the J. Command G. And if I want the lowercase j also, Command G. To duplicate letters, I'm going to click on it one time over here. It's grouped. I'm going to hold the Option key down and drag it over here. Then I'm going to select the W, Option key, and drag it over here. I'm also going to take the lowercase letters just to see what the difference in the logos would look like if it was uppercase or lowercase. So now that I have all of these in place, I can actually delete this text here because it's duplicated on the other page over here. Still going to leave this the same. And then I'm going to zoom in to just this page because this is the only page I'm really interested in at this point. Make sure you finish the alphabet first, though. I notice that this student still needs to finish the Y and also the G. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of these elements, hold the Option key down, and drag it over the top of this one. Then I'm going to go to my color palette. Notice that all the tools aren't here, so I've got to click on this little symbol on the top right corner, which is your options. It's the same thing as the 3 dots when you're in Google. And I'm going to select Show Options. Remember that there's 2 elements. The one in the top left corner is Fill, the one in the lower right corner is Stroke. Since I want to fill the inside, I'm going to select the top one and click the black chip. What you're going to do is you're going to put the white letters on top of the black symbol, the black oval. So I'm going to click on the stroke and make it white. You'll notice it didn't show up across here because it's currently behind the oval. So I'm going to cut this out by hitting Command X. I'm going to select this oval, and then I'm going to paste it in front by hitting Command F. And then I'm going to reduce it down to fit inside as much as possible. This is a really basic logo, but I'm going to repeat this with all of these shapes just so that I can see the difference between them all. So I'm going to grab the circle, Option, drag, paint the inside of it black, select these 2 letters by clicking that one first, and then holding the Shift key and clicking this one. I let go of all of the keys on the keyboard. Now I'm clicking on this, holding the Option key down, and dragging it to the right. I'm just going to repeat that with all of these shapes. Here's another shortcut that is really handy. The eyedropper tool allows me to pick up color from another object. So what you want to do is you want to have the object selected that you want to color. Click the eyedropper tool, and then hit the color or the object that you want to drag the color from or copy the color from. If you want to do all of these first, because they're all going to be black initially, I've selected all of them. Click the eyedropper tool. Then I'm going to click here and save them. So these are now all black. And if you want to leave them there, you can actually just click and drag these letters over there. Again, I've held the Shift key down. Now I'm going to hold the Option key down and just drag them all over here. You can see that it's behind again. So I'm going to hit Command X to cut it. Now to put those letters that I just saved on top of everything, I'm going to select everything by holding the Command key down and hitting the letter A. That will select everything. And now when I paste in front, it should paste in front of everything, including that box, or that oval. Play around with the design here by moving the letters around to get them inside the boxes or shape as much as possible. You can either click and drag them, or you can actually move them around with the cursor keys on the keyboard. That's the little arrows. So play around with a bunch of different shapes and a bunch of different letters that you've created. I'm hitting Command 0. I'm going to drag all of this over to this area, holding the Option key down to duplicate it. So you can either do the logos right on top of here, or you can group them all over here. I'm just going to very quickly go through these and duplicate them. You can also group, once you have your letters in a position you want them, you could group the letters together so that they move together all the time. I group the J and the W. Hold the Option key down and drag it over here. Notice how it's missing that part of the J. That's something I'll have to either make this smaller or make the triangle bigger, and then rearrange the letters. So play around with all of these. If you want the letters to be thinner, because this is very fat right now, go over here to the stroke tool, and where it currently says 4 points, make it 2 or 1 or whatever works for you. And then do the same thing with these letters. I'm going to select these letters, copy them, or cut them, Command X, select everything, paste them in front, Command F. Then I'm going to hold the Option key down and drag some of these other shapes over here so that I can do these very quickly. This will probably take you several hours to do, and this is our final. There's a couple of other things that we're going to do to it that I'll show you in the next lesson. And that basically is how to cut the letters out so that they're transparent or see-through on here. So I'm just going to select this, make it white on the stroke, drag it over here, and then zoom in, holding the space bar and the Command key and dragging a rectangle around all these shapes. I'm going to reduce it down to fit inside that diamond shape. Notice how even though it's not completely fitting inside, there's some interesting things happening here as the letters go and touch the edge. That's what makes for an interesting logo. So play around with these and always save your work. One thing I want to say again and again and again, always log out of everything that you're in. In other words, log out of Google Classroom, log out of, if you're in Weebly or still using Weebly, log out of Google Drive. I'm having a lot of people right now suddenly say, Mr. Wing, all my stuff's gone. Again, I have one student who's lost something every single day. I'm starting to suspect that this student is actually just not saving his work in the right place, and rather than turning his work in when he needs to, it's just not getting turned in. I have no way of knowing one way or the other, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. But I'm getting a little suspicious that every single day his stuff is gone. And I'm not going to name who the student is. It's none of anyone's business but his and mine. What I would strongly suggest, and what I've told this particular student, is get your own Gmail account and upload your stuff to your own Gmail account. That would be the smart thing to do. That way it's never missing. So the last thing I'm going to do on this, the current file name should say alphabet _, your first initial last name, _ your period number, and _ parts. But I'm going to change it to this naming convention. You're going to put logo, _ first initial last name, _ period number, and that's it. I'm going to hit Command 0 so I can see all of the logos I've done so far. And that's probably all you're going to be able to get done in the next day or so, assuming that you've already finished the alphabet. Once again, save your files. I'm just zooming in so that I can see both pages. I've got a whole bunch of different variations of the logo here and more that I can play with. But we'll deal with all of those things later. This is a 20-minute video, so it's going to take you a while to get through it. Remember that you can always hold the Command key down and tab in between applications. So if you're watching the video here, you can hold the Command key down and tab back over to Adobe Illustrator. I would strongly suggest that you watch the entire video and then go back through it again step by step, pause the video, and then tab over to Adobe Illustrator. And that's how you do a basic logo. Please turn that in and Google Classroom.